Sorry, what's up, my friends? Hey, I'm going to try and finish my last two chapters of my book today. So, hang on. This is chapter 6 and chapter 7 of my last book 3. Some minor changes added to it. I'll stop every once in a while and view the screen when I'm on my Word where it's not printed out because of some changes I made but not printed. So, just bear with me. Chapter 6. So, according to the interrogations we've gleaned from Imperial troops captured at Beta Gaizel, the Falcon Project is located in Theta Valensis system. Stephen says as he leads a briefing in the main conference room. A 3D holographic emitter displays a 3D rendering of the Theta Valensis system and its 8 planets. The fourth planet, a gas giant with a ring, is highlighted and enlarged to represent the most current data sent by the reconnaissance craft in the system. And a fleet of 8, I think I changed that to 24, ships in orbit, the central one of which is a super battlecruiser escorted by 7 battlecruisers and their escort fighters. They can make out what appears to be 2 tall pillars on the bow of the massive cruiser. What are those pillars for? Rita asks, raising one hand. Unknown, Captain, Stephen says. But we can assume it's the Falcon Project. Understood, Admiral, Rita says, smiling at the mention that she is now a captain. Admiral, I want you to lead your fleet into the Theta Valensis system and take on the Imperials. Capture this Falcon Project intact and its designer captured, if possible, King Lurkin says. Yes, Your Highness. Good luck to us all, Steve says. Seth walks up now, wearing an admiral's rank on his collar as the briefing ends. Congratulations, Admiral, Stephen says, smiling at his friend. He had a part in the captain's promotion. So there are a whole bunch of promotions going on. It has something to do with this thing you ace, Seth asks, smiling back. I have no idea what you're talking about, Steve says, straight-faced. Thanks, kid, Sep says, smiling. I guess you had something to do with my promotion. That is fine with me. I now command the cargo fleet in the system. You deserve it, Skipper, Stephen says. You have the respect of all cargo captains. Thank you, Stephen. Stephen? Did you call me captain? Rena asks, walking up now. Yes, I did, Rena. You earned it, Stephen says. You and Hannah are still some of the best fighter pilots in the fleet, me included. And you serve as my chief of staff. Don't worry, Hannah. You will be promoted to captain soon enough. As Hannah Baxter stands behind Rena, smiling at her bald friend. Thanks, Admiral, Hannah says. You're welcome, Commander. Stephen says, smiling, and I do me full, Commander. Now you, Rena, and I shall do what we do best, fly Vipers in battle. Julia is among the briefing, too, joining other samurai warriors present for the briefing. This will be her first mission as a full samurai warrior now. She's nervous but excited. Her mom and mother-in-law will look after the twins while she's out of the system. She's even worked on her samurai sword to ensure it's working correctly, despite having had it for only a short time. Manufacturing it from a polymer steel alloy and microelectronic equipment internally. The steel alloy casing even looks like a tree limb, like the one carried by her late friend Tegus. And it is so light, only a few kilograms. But it has a handguard like the one on her mother's samurai sword. I like that idea. That's one of my changes I added. Okay, people, let's get rolling. Sorry, Steven says as the briefing ends. He, Rena, Hannah, and the samurai warriors, Julia included, board their prospective ships for the jump to the Theta Valensis system, which is over 100 light years away. So it'll take some time to reach the Imperial Fleet Station there. At maximum warp, it'll be at least a day's travel time. Okay. They boarded the Hornet and make ready for jumping to the Theta Valensis system, hoping to catch the Imperial fleet off guard. They jump a couple hours later when the fleet is assembled in the system's edge on the system's edge. With Stephen and his Viper, his favorite mount when he goes into battle. He is accustomed to the Viper he rides into battle now. Some years time since he first strapped Tiger 4 on his back. Good luck to us all. See you all at Theta Valensis. He calls over his radio. That's some of the stuff I added. Not a lot of changes. We drop out of warp in 30 seconds. Be ready to hit them head on, Steven says over his helmet with comms. Save the big boy with the pylons on the bow. That has to be the Falcon Project device. He flies his prize Tiger 4, followed by a couple hundred Vipers, Goody Birds, some new E-Wings, and a new T-Wings. Let them hit them head on, strike them hard. Save the big boy as little damage as possible. Roger, comes the voice of his wing commanders. He just repeated his orders, but his people know what they're doing. They are some of the best pilots in the rebellion. They knew the orders and that he trusted them. While on the Hornet, two black painted shuttles await the order to launch and deliver their passengers, 48 samurai warriors and some marines, to serve as backup. Julia huddled among them, her first mission as a samurai warrior. Julia, please stay close to Natuk as soon as you get on the ship. I know you know how to handle yourself in battle, but this will be your first actual battle against real Imperial troopers. He beams to his wife. I understand, Master. She beams back. Okay. He pulls back on his throttles, and every other Viper and Rebel ship behind him drops out of warp and now face a fleet of 24 Imperial battle cruisers and a super battle cruiser at its center, orbiting the Theta Valensis gas giant, like it's done since before the Battle of Beta Geisel, along with a swarm of some 250 Scorpion fighters. He's got them head on, and they are just coming to full battle readiness when the rebels come out of warp and their Scorpions swarm out to engage the rebel fleet of fighters and fighter bombers. While the large rebel starts bombarding the Imperial ships as they turn to port or starboard, crossing the T, so to speak. And he has the imps outnumbered 2-1. He weaves his way toward the big boy in the tall pylons fitted to the wide bow, crossing between the pylons as he zooms on the hull of the Imperial vessel. He takes out many gun emplacements along the way, but he does not strike at the pylons as he passes between the towers. That dwarfs him and his wingmen behind and then to either side of him. He pulls back in the stick and goes for altitude as he banks to port and makes for one of the escorts. It was already smoking from multiple hits. He strafes along the side of the massive vessel as he makes for the smaller two cavernous landing bays and dives through the force shield that protects the people inside the bay. He strafes all in the bay as he passes through and out to the opposite force shield and into space once more, followed by his wingmen who dodges wreckage and Imperials trying to shoot back at them to no avail. Tiger 4 to Talon 1 and 2, clear for launch. He calls over a secure channel as he starts shooting along the port side of a crippled escort. Okay, the deck of the Hornet, two all black shuttles lift off and make their way towards the super battle cruiser with no escort. The passengers are blocking any Imperials from seeing the shuttles, even though the shuttles are visible on radar and with the naked eye. They rush to the large vessel and pass through the shield, landing in the cavernous main landing bay. I gotta change that. The shuttle's back opens up and ramps the slide out and touches the polished black deck. And the passengers rush out and engage the Imperial troops and officers close by, followed by the Marines, all blasters blazing away. Stephen lands his Viper a moment later and jumps down from the cockpit, his own samurai sword in hand and being activated. The amber blade coming to life. Right after this, I'm going to stop. They all take out the numerous Imperials as they try to defend themselves. Julia takes out many troopers with her blade and is not even wounded one bit. Not even wounded either. But there are many dead Imperials strewn across the deck of the cavernous bay. We got them, Stephen. Stephen Natuk says as they hide behind a metal cargo crate. Just as they watch the only exit of the bay, there's a second exit. But smoke is spewing from the portal. Let's get rolling then, Stephen says. 2 more shuttles land and more Marines disgorge from the backs of the shuttles. He rises to his feet and takes the center of the line abreast of the samurai and Marines behind him as he makes for the only portal that leads aft towards the command tower, where hopefully the inventor of the Falcon project is stationed. They have the Imperials caught off guard and are trying to assemble defensive positions to no avail. But they know they have maybe half the ship's crew cut off forward of the smaller landing bay, now a total wreck, and some of the damage is spreading to areas around the damaged bay, all decks above and below the bay as well. All right, I'm going to take a break and look at my screen. Give me a second. There I am. Sorry, I've been reading from my computer, not this. I had changes I made. Didn't get the printout. But I will be back after I finish reading the next page, next section. All right, hold on. Am I seeing things, or am I seeing samurai warriors attacking our Imperial troops? Rickover says, watching a monitor as the rebel force makes its way through the ship's long, wide corridor. That appears to be what we are facing, Professor. Commander Kent B. Delerka says. But I see 2 young warriors among the old-timers. We are doing our best to stop them with what we have on hand, but many of our troops are trapped in the forward areas of the ship, caused by the fires and battle damage caused by that crazy rebel. Get as many troops as possible and officers in positions to stop these rebels. Now, Commander, Rickover says flatly. Yes, Commander. Yes, Professor, Delarca says as he goes to a comms panel and speaks quickly and excitedly into the speaker. While the pit officers and crew work feverishly to fight the rebel fleet and the force now swarming along the interior of the ship. While at the rear of the main bridge, some 50 Imperial troopers set up defensive positions across the space in the main entrance to the main bridge. But they hear that their friends and comrades are failing to stop these crazy rebels. And they're falling to the old-timers and the 2 young warriors and the rebel Marines behind them. Let's stop from there because I don't think I have any changes I made. No, I just finished reading from the page from the book. That makes sense. Forget. Yeah, mouse pad. I bought me a real mouse yesterday. Mouse and mouse pad yesterday. Got tired of trying to. Where was I at? Okay. I think they have us cornered, Stephen, Julia says as they police up the area that they just cleared of Imperial troops. She tosses aside an Imperial blaster carbine after removing the battery power pack, and hands it to one of the Marines covering them. See that? Boy, will they be surprised when we are ready to move on, Stephen says. He takes a sip of fresh cold water from a small canteen on his belt. Stephen, we are ready to move out, Captain Tomas K. Simpson says as he walks up. Let's roll then, Captain, Stephen says as they start marching down the long, wide corridor that spans the length of the very long vessel. Yet every so often they'll encounter Imperials trying to hold them back. Mental barriers lead the way, blocking the green blaster bolts from reaching the rebel forces. But the rebel blaster bolts pass through, taking down Imperials. He reaches the following line of defense, and he and Julia roll into the Imperials, and in moments all Imperials are dead. There are some 100 troopers. You okay, Julia? Stephen asks, seeing that she's kneeling for a respite. I'm okay. Just need to catch my breath, Julia says. Never been in a battle like this before. You wounded? Stephen asks. No, I'm fine, Master. Julia says, getting to her feet. You two take up the rear for the time being, Stephen. Natuk says as they join him now. My companions and I can carry on the fight from the front. This brings back old memories. Thank you, Natuk, Stephen says. Seeing Julia look up at the ceiling and the video cameras following them. You guys see those? Cameras are following us. I see that. Must be from the command deck above us. Natuk says. Julia looks up at one of the micro camera lenses and follows and smiles and waves. Nobody makes an effort to turn off the cameras that track their movements. They now reach across the corridor, peek around the corridor, and look down in either direction. You see bulkheads and force fields barring their progress. But ahead and going up towards the command deck are scores of. How many there is the only question. Okay. The kids, just a bit tired from leading from the front, take up the rear guard as they watch shadowy figures following them, but at a safe distance. They can get glimpses of troopers holding back. Stephen keeps his sword in one hand, his R12 blaster pistol in the other. He makes it look like he's not aware of the troopers behind them, and the Marines and Special Forces cover their back. He keeps a nonchalant attitude as if he had no idea that the Imperials were following them and that the rebels were oblivious to their presence as they continue to patrol the corridor and fall back down it as if nothing is out of the ordinary. We have company, Stephen beams to his friends. Understood. How many and how far back? Now took beams back. And none how many, but they're holding back at least 50 meters. Stephen beams. Do you need backup? Akita beams now. Negative, Master. Stephen beams. The princess and I can handle them. They must think we are weak. Could not handle a full bull rush attack from the front and the rear, Major Peck says, as she has her AKX 3616 blaster rifle. Pack, I want you and your team to lay down a suppressing fire clear across the hallway, Stephen says, as he erects his mental barrier between them and the oncoming Imperial troopers. You got it, Admiral, Peck says, as she and some of her special forces troops kneel. They level the rifles at the corridor behind them. Just as a flood of Imperials rushes at them at the corridor they just come down. At the same time, another flood of Imperials rushes at the front of the rebel force, only to be cut down by the rebel blaster fire and the concentrated liberal use of a samurai sword. No return fire strikes home among rebels, thanks to the mental barriers the samurai erected. They must be desperate for us to stop us. They must be desperate to stop us from reaching the command deck, Julia says. Yes, she and Stephen clean up after the quick battle that lasted moments. I saw Imperium among the Imperials. They must be running out of troops to defend the ship, Stephen says. But then a flood of missiles strike against the mental barrier in front of them, coming from a new, unexpected Imperial toy. A missile toting rocket launcher that can be maneuvered on two legs and operated by a crew of two Imperials. Excuse me. Thankfully, the barriers are holding back the missile strikes. It appears to be man portable, thanks to the two legs that walk like a bipedal creature. You got problems, Stephen beams. New weapons system back here. Yeah, the same problem, Master. I took set of beams back. Please do what you can to stop it. We can take care of this problem up here at the front. Understood. Stephen beams back, smiling. Peck, stay back. The princess and I will take care of this, he says aloud. You got it, Admiral. Stephen and Julia rise to their feet and move forward towards the oncoming missile launcher system, keeping a mental barrier erect between them and the Imperials. This new weapon continues to fire at them with no effect. All right, let's stop for a moment. All right. Oh, hey. Hi, my friend. How you doing, Hiki? You all right? Good afternoon to you too, my friend. Started a little early today. Got family over. My brother's birthday today. Same here. I'm doing good. Sorry, I did start, like I said, I started a little early because it's my brother's birthday. Got me a mouse for my computer. I hate the mouse pad they give you on laptops. $5 for this guy, and it's wired to my computer, but that's all right with me. I'd rather have that than the wireless mouse. I tried one of those, did not like it. But I'm reading from my computer, not reading from my page of printed paper, so I'm going to stop every once in a while because I'm finishing my last two chapters of the book, and I'm almost done with chapter 6. Chapter 7 is only 3 pages long. You just come on. Made some minor changes to my book, adding a few things. Chapter 6 is not the same with what I have printed. Maybe the first page is still the same, but not the whole chapter. So I'm reading from my printed book, my laptop. I'll get back to it. If you we are, I'm going back to reading until I get to the end of chapter. I'll stop again before the end of chapter 6. There's not much left to chapter 6 from where I'm at. I'll stop every, like I said, stop every so often. Get your feedback. Hope you like it. Come on. Really? Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to check. Oh, okay. All right. Back to what I was actually reading. I can see what you're saying as I'm reading, so don't worry now. My fault. Haven't done this for a while. Haven't read from my laptop for a while. All right. Back to my reading. Even the new P13223A Stolivanov is useless against these samurai and their barriers. Eve Recover says as she watches rebels dispatch her gun crews that operate the two-legged missile launcher system. It can fire up to 10 missiles at once from multiple launch tubes. We are fast running out of troopers and to stop the rebels, Professor. Commander Delurka says. Maybe we should contact the commander and ask for his terms. Cannot believe I'm about to do this. But her demeanor is also softened. She no longer feels the effects of the Emperor in her mind. Contact them by radio and send an officer down under a flag of truce and ask the commander for his terms. I shall go myself, Delurka says, nodding. He puts on his peaked cap, unholsters his Mauser pistol, and sets it down on the console beside him. Then pulls out a white sheet and walks off the command deck, followed by a pair of troopers, both unarmed as well. I hope the terms are fair, Recovered says to herself. Delurka takes a lift down to the level where the rebels are advancing against little, if any, resistance. He hears the distinct sound of blaster fire in the distance down the long, bow to stern, wide corridor. She calls ahead to order the cessation of fire. He calls ahead to order the cessation of fire on their side. He can now hear the easing of blaster fire from the rebel side as he reaches the last line of defense hastily erected by his troops. He raises his white sheet above his head and starts waving it back and forth. Hold your fire, Stephen says as he sees a white flag being waved. Okay. He watches as the men and women around him ease up and finally stop shooting as the Imperials were no longer firing at them. Admiral, we are getting a signal from that commander that Admiral, we are getting a signal that the commander wishes to discuss terms. One of Peck's men says as he holds a radio transmitter to his ear. That must be the Imperial commander, Natuk says, pointing to a man in an Imperial commander's uniform who rises to his feet and walks between the battle lines, both hands visible, and a white sheet also visible. Stephen sees no weapon in the man's holster either. Cover me anyway, he says, rising to his feet, arms out for all to see on both sides. He moves slowly forward towards the Imperial, who does likewise. But Stephen does keep his samurai sword clipped to his belt, but his hands were well away from it, Commander, he says as they are in arm's reach of each other. Admiral, the officer says, nodding. My commander wishes to discuss terms for my surrender? Stephen asks, worried. No, sir. The surrender of all the Imperial forces here on the ship, and those still fighting your rebel fleet out there, the officer says. There is no hope of stopping you and your people from overrunning our defenses no matter what we do. We may have you outnumbered, but you have us beaten with your samurai skills. Okay, term 1. Ceasefire of all Imperial forces on the ship and those of the remaining Imperial ships out there. Number 2. Hand over all weapons, Stephen says. 3. We want all schematics for the Falcon project and its developer, if at all possible. All Imperial troops will be treated fairly. You have my word on it, Imperium included. The Imperial's in court recording this on a data pad as he listens. It'll take me some time, the man says. You have 10 minutes, Stephen says, nodding. Thank you, Admiral, the officer says, nodding as he turns and walks back to his lines. The ceasefire has been held while they talk. What do you think? Interesting little battle. Might add little changes to this later, but right now I just don't see anything I can do. What else I could do to this? I like what I've done. Okay. Professor Eve Rickover, Fleet Admiral Steven Spears. Commander Delerka says. You're just a kid, Eve Rickover says, shocked. You're the famous destroyer of the Dark Star? I am, Professor, Steven says. He gets quite a few stares from Imperials on the command deck as they're slowly disarmed of sidearms, and troopers are disarmed as well. Then I will surrender myself to you and your rebel alliance, Eve says, nodding. I am the designer and builder of the Falcon project. Is it still operational? It is. Yes, it is. Some minor damage. Thanks to the antics of a crazy Viper pilot that took out the secondary landing bay, Eve says, making Steven smile. I'm that crazy Viper pilot you're talking about, Steven says. I am Professor Eve Rickover of House Rickover of the Terran System, Admiral. Eve says, I surrender to you and the rebel forces. I hand over myself and my ship to the my invention intact. I accept your surrender, Professor, Steven says, nodding. I also request asylum with the Alliance, Eve says. You're Tiger 4, Delerka says. I hear that you command from the front. You have the respect of many in the Imperial High Command, me included. Thank you, Commander. And that, my friend, is Chapter 6. Chapter 7, there's not really much changed. I might hold on. Yeah, I can read from the pages because all the changes I made are right here. So give me a second. I click this off. What do you think of my chapter 6 so far? Saving it. And I can finish. I can read from chapter 7 now because there isn't much changes I've already made of this one that I have written on the chain in the book. Thanks. All right, you ready? Chapter 6 was my favorite one because I decided to do 2 battles in this book alone. Both most of the battle, as you can tell, was inside the ship, main vessel, because that's the most important part of the book, of the chapter. All right, chapter 7. A week passes, and the Imperial battle cruiser is now orbiting Centauri Prime. The tech guys and the ORO and I have questioned Eve Rickover since landing on Prime, and she's been forthcoming with her answers and all schematics for her brainchild, the Falcon Project. She has also made an effort to tell other secrets she may hold about the Empire, any future projects in the works. In the works? Sorry. She's been given money to spend and a place to live in the city. She does stand out among due to her her dark black eyes and a mohawk that all Terrans, both male and female, have, and the orange shade of her skin. She's first Terran to visit since her school days when she went to college here. As Terrans only serve the Empire along with the bushy, long sideburns and small pointed ears and small pointed fangs that stick out over her lower lips. Her lower lip, sorry. They have blue blood and 6 fingers and toes, spindly arms, muscular legs. That says a lot. That's some of the changes I made to book chapter 7. She has a better life here since she does not have to wear any life support or breathing mask to venture out into the environment, thanks to the fact that these native inhabitants coexist with a natural where her family has lived under a dome since birth. She lives here. She loves it here. The food is naturally grown here and killed and slaughtered for consumption. Can't talk. She has a villa just on the edge of the city where she can see the clear blue ocean and creatures that soar in the bright blue skies above, and native life that roams the forests around her. She's been greeted by her neighbors as soon as she moved in, too. The world is large, not by Terran Force standards, but inhabited by less than 1 billion beings. That's a lot of people. Human and Nagano alike. We're on Terran 4. Every single square meter on the planet is paved over and used for industry exclusively. There are dry docks on the surface and in orbit that build warships for the Empire, developing and designing new ships every year. The first Dark Star was created by Recover Industries, but built in another star system. That comes in book 4. Tonight, the first night that she's been able to rest easy after a week of grilling by the RONI, Rebel Office of Naval Intelligence. Recover's wandering Prime City. She's heard great reviews of this pub run by a human named Sepp Dietrich. The place is called Dietrich's. It's frequented by pilots and natives alike. She follows directions to the pub and sees it's a bustling place as people walk in and out happy. She walks into the pub hearing music coming from inside. This is where the book ends. and a cliffhanger. I won't tell you about the cliffhangers until you get to the end, but it ends with a cliffhanger. She walks up to the long bar and sits on a bar stool as a friendly bartender walks over smiling. Can I get you a drink? She asks as Eve lays her hand down on the age verification pad in front of her, getting a green light a second later. What's the best drink everyone is drinking? Eve asks. Jack Daniels, the bartender says as she reaches for a bottle and a glass, then pours a nice portion into the transparent glass, then pushes the glass across the bar top to Eve to try. Eve takes a sip and coughs, but smiles. Thank you. This stuff is delicious, Eve says, finishing the rest of the glass full. More? B. Bay, sorry. B-A-E is her name spelled. Please put this lady's drinks on my credit, Steven Spears says, walking up. You got it, Admiral, Bay says, smiling as she refills the glass. Thank you, Admiral Spears, Eve says, as they walk over to sit at Sep's private booth, where Julia, Sep, Natuk, Rena, and Hannah sit, celebrating as usual. Sep gets up to give Eve her seat in the booth. He gets an empty chair from an empty table. Forget it, Professor, Steven says, smiling. How do you like it on Prime so far? I love it over Terran 4, Eve responds as Commander Delorica walks into the pub. I hope you like your new home, Julia says, as she sits next to her husband, Stephen. I love my new home, thank you, Your Highness, Eve says, smiling as Delorica now joins them. Welcome, Commander, Admiral. Delorica says, coming to attention, Admirals. Forget that, Commander. My friends call me Stephen, Stephen says. My name is Kent B. Delorica of Brazil Union Earth, the commander says. He's in an Imperial uniform. I don't know. I forget. I don't go into detail on that. You're from Earth? Sep asks, surprised. Yes, I am, Delorica says, nodding. God, your RO and I are hard case interrogators. I must have been under their legs for 3 days, being grilled for all the information I have on the Empire and what I know of the Falcon Project. I was grilled for 8 days straight too, Eve says. Then I was able to supply everything I have on the project, schematics and blueprints. And it's fully functional too, Steven says, nodding. I was so happy that your people did not badly damage the pylons or the generators during the battle when you captured the fleet. He says, I should be surprised that you were able to destroy the Dark Star Admiral, but you found a weakness in my industry's secret weapon. We had help, Professor, Stephen says, but does not give names. Ah, and now I have more bad news, Admiral, Eve says. What is this bad news? They've begun the construction of a second Dark Star. And there is my cliffhanger. Done. You have to wait for book 4 to know what happens there. But book 4 goes. I love book 4. And as I said, there's another Dark Star in the mix. What do you think? You like it? But I didn't do any. I'm not going to tell you what happens to book four. I did tell you there is going to be a second, like I said, there's a second Dark Star under construction, final phases of construction in book four. I can say where or what it looks like. Book one, I actually changed how the Earth is destroyed. I'm going to have to do the same with book four because it's a little different. But I hope you liked it. Now I had to write book four in my computer too. I haven't even started that because I want to finish book three, reading book three before I did started book four. Book four, but I will start book four later, maybe tomorrow. And that's a long book too. And there's some sad parts and there's some happy parts. Nothing horrible. There's reunions, but that's all I'm gonna say. There's a second Dark Star, second battle station. But I hope you liked what I finished. Books chapter six was a lot of changes I made. Nothing serious because I didn't have any. You're the only one there. See two people on my screen, unless I'm the second person. I see somebody give me a thumbs up already. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in my comment screen or say it on here. I'm not. I won't be hurt if you have any complaints. If you don't like what I've written, if you have any suggestions that make me better in my writing, please make them. I'm not hurt. I listen. I try to improve upon my shortcomings. My one being I like to talk a lot, as you can guess. But today, like I said, last night I bought me a mouse, a nice one, only $5. Oh, you're welcome, my friend. You're good. I appreciate you coming to listen to me. You're the only person who actually said anything to my friend to come on here and actually listen to me live. And I hope you caught I'll reread all chapter six. But if not, I started a little early today because I was bored. And when I'm bored, I got to do something to get rid of boredom. But I don't know. Thank you, my friend. Have a good day. I'm going to call it a day. Yeah. Say, have a good day. You be safe. God bless you, my friend. My first book is this much closer to publishing. They've sent me a copy by email a week ago. I looked at it. I looked over it, read through it. Exactly what I want. I'm excited now. I hope you buy a copy when it's done, when it's published. It's going to be published internationally, not just not just here in the United States. Oops, sorry, not yet. I'm going to call it a day, my friend. You have a good day. Thank you for listening. Sorry, I can't remember. This is my left hand waving at you. My right hand waving as well. That's my brother's birthday, but yeah, thank y'all. Thank you, my friend. I'm going to call it a day. I'll see you later. I'll talk to you again as soon as I get your book 4 done. And book 4 is right here. It's already written. All I gotta do is now transcribe it to my laptop. That's book 4. And this is just as fun as the first one as the others were. Like I said, there's a second Dark Star, and I'm not gonna tell you what happens to that. I like to do, but have a handwritten rough draft. I don't know if there's gonna be a long book. Because originally my book 4 was not even close to what this was when I wrote when I read to you. Book 3 was not even close to the original that was originally written in my handwritten book. I call them rough drafts because they are. There's no title for this one either. It's going to have to come out when I finally get it's done. When I I guess when I'm done writing it on my computer, because I can't never think of a book title. It's hard for me to. Even the book title for number 3 is I don't know if I like book 3 title, The Siege. I might change that. Yeah, I like book three's title, The Siege. Like I like book 2, the title of book 2, because book 3 explains book two's title. Book 3 describes and explains book 2, and that was just like spur of the moment decision to add that to my book. I couldn't leave it like it was. What do you think the 75,000-year-old alien race that I introduced? Well, 2 alien races I introduced in my story at the beginning. I'm still iffy about whether to keep them and bring them into the story later, in like book 5. But they're not in book 4. Yeah, thank you, my friend. You have a good evening too, my friend. I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for watching me again, as always. As soon as book 4 is on my laptop, I will start reading and I will give you a heads up when I'm ready to start. Okay? Have a good day, my friend. Be safe. God bless you. Thank you. Bye. Yeah, I'm going to call it a day.